Y'all are here to kind of learn how to build this A+ LinkedIn profile. And this event is kind of part of a two-part series, which David, our speaker, will kind of touch on a little bit later. But about David, so David is the founder of DR Consulting and has helped thousands of students and professionals launch their careers just by establishing impactful LinkedIn presences, which definitely counts, I feel like, for more than sometimes we give credit to, right? And so with that, he's equipped just with a performing background and has over 15 years of award-winning public speaking experience and kind of extensive personal branding and marketing and sales expertise. So he actually got his undergrad degree in marketing from the University of Maryland. And while there, won a number of different awards and had some incredible, just for his leadership expertise. And he's often described, which if you looked at his LinkedIn profile, you'll see as a human energizer bunny, just due to his highly enthusiastic persona, which you'll get a taste of here today. And so David actually previously worked for LinkedIn and will return this upcoming summer as a sales associate. So when it comes to knowing the ins and outs of LinkedIn, I can honestly think of anyone better to host for today's event. So if you'll join me in offering a warm virtual welcome, David, the floor is yours. So.
Hey, thanks so much, Connor. And first of all, go Pack. It is so wonderful to be seeing everyone. We have a jam-packed workshop today. I'm going to be telling you a lot about me and about LinkedIn. But before we get started and while we're all meeting each other, I am just dying to get to know who are the people on this call. I know we have students, we have young alumni who are still a part of the Wolf Pack and have been out for a while. And so I'd love to hear who everyone is in the chat. If you wouldn't mind, current students, telling me who you are, what you're studying, alumni, where you are right now, maybe what brought you onto this call. Super excited to get to know all of you. But as Connor mentioned, and first of all, thanks again to NC State alumni for hosting me. This is part of a two-part series. So we will be back next week focused on networking. Now that you have a fantastic LinkedIn profile after today's workshop, how do we take it and actually use it and take advantage of it? So that'll be part two. Today, we're going to be talking all about your profile. Again, I've worked at LinkedIn. I will be going back to LinkedIn, so I don't work at LinkedIn right now. What that means is I get to share all the insider scoops as everything that I learned as an employee without sort of representing the company. And so what we're going to do today is really three things. And I see people introducing themselves. I can't wait to get to know you all. But we're going to talk about three objectives. First, we're going to go down the entire profile, and all of you are going to learn actionable ways to optimize each section of your profile. We're going to learn how which sections are more important than others for recruiters when they're trying to find you, and maybe even what are the biggest no-nos that I see, because I review hundreds of profiles every single month, and I see the same 5 errors time and time again on students and alumni alike. So we're going to go through all those, but before we do get started, I want to make sure we're all aligned as to why this is important. Clearly, you're all on this webinar, so give yourself a pat on the back. But for those of you who aren't fully bought into why you should invest in your LinkedIn profile, here are 3 reasons. First, it helps you stay connected with your network. I guarantee that there are people who you might have met freshman year if you're an upperclassman, or maybe if you're a seasoned professional who you met early on in your career. And it's difficult to maintain those relationships at scale, but I got a message like this from someone who I met my freshman year of college. His name was Garrett. He was a director. He graduated from Maryland a long time ago. And I reached out to him senior year saying, hey, Garrett, we haven't spoken in 3.5 years. There's no way you remember me. And this is what he responded. Great to hear from you. Of course I remember you. It's been wonderful following your journey professionally. That's the power of LinkedIn. Secondly, your resume gives a snapshot of your career, but your LinkedIn profile is sort of like a Wikipedia article. It's not confined to 1 or 2 pages. You get to really go deep. And you get to make it personal and spunky. It's not as black and white as a resume, literally. And lastly, it lets recruiters find you. I know for all of us who have been on the job market, we've all been in the lens of going on LinkedIn, pressing easy apply, or going through jobs and never hearing back. But what if we could take recruiters and make them send you messages like this one? Hi, David, I'm a huge fan of what you're accomplishing. Would love to get connected with you. That came from a recruiter just from having a strong profile. And that's my goal, is to have all of you have recruiters use your profile to vet your evaluation as a candidate, but also not just have them find you, but according to data, having a comprehensive LinkedIn profile is statistically shown that you're more likely to get an interview. than if you have no profile at all, or even worse, a profile that's not complete. So let's talk about how we're going to do it. We're going to spend 60 jam-packed minutes today from 12 o'clock until 1 o'clock Eastern going through every part of the profile. We're going to start at the very, very top, talking about the things you don't even know are a part of your profile, all the way to the bottom and everything in between. Now, along the way that we're going to be talking, I want you all to pull up your LinkedIn profiles in a new window. There are going to be some sections that we talk about that are going to be tiny settings you can tweak in the moment and immediately have results. And there are going to be other sections of your profile that may take time to write. Either way, I want you to leave this profile workshop knowing everything that you need to do and having already made a few changes. You're locked in. This is going to be an hour long of jam-packed information. So if you have other tabs, windows, emails, just close them for 1 hour and lock them in. If you need to turn on Do Not Disturb to keep your focus, do it. I guarantee there may be something that may come up for 30 seconds that may be the little nugget that helps you get that job. And before we get started, we're just going to do a bonus hack right out the bat. For all of you who pulled up your LinkedIn profile in a new tab, I want you to go to the very, very top, the URL, and make sure that your profile already has a clean URL. By default, LinkedIn profiles have a lot of characters and numbers, letters at the end. So if yours is that way, let's clean it up and make it simple so on your resume it jumps out. First, go to the top right of your profile, click Edit Public Profile and URL. Secondly, click Edit your custom URL, also in the top right. And then lastly, take your URL. Mine used to be linkedin.com/in/Rosenstein. You can make it D-Rosenstein, the same format as your email, whatever you want, just to clean it up. And while we're doing that, while you're all cleaning that up, it seems like we have some awesome people over here. Hey, it looks like we have some awesome graduates, computer science. Ooh, policy analysis. We'll definitely talk about a policy profile data later on. Human bio, science, technology, society, performance minor with music, strategy, innovation, consulting. So nice to meet you all. Innovation entrepreneurship. Hey, let's definitely talk about how to use your profile to sell you and your product. Now, a few quick disclaimers. We're going to move fast. Luckily, this presentation is recorded and we will send out the recording afterwards. And also, I'm going to answer questions throughout. So if you have questions that come up, I know when I'm in class and I have a professor who says something and I have a question, I can't listen or process any new information until I get that question out of my head. So I'm going to encourage all of you, if you do have a question, throw it in the Zoom chat. Set it, forget it, and then you don't need to think about it. There will be natural pauses where we'll get to the questions, but I don't want you to get distracted by whatever's in your head. So with that in mind, before we get started, can we get some thumbs up in the chat, 1 through 10? Are people excited? I know people are going to type them. And so I'm really excited. I hope you all are too. Awesome. Okay, we already have some people chapping in. Yay, thanks, Jessie Ann. So let's get started with a pop quiz. What is the most important element of your LinkedIn profile? And this is a quiz. I want to hear what you all think. So throw in the chat what you think is the most important section of your profile. Mason, so nice to meet you. Molly, I'm curious what you have to say. Grace and Susan, seems like y'all are friends. Susan, okay, your profile picture, definitely an important section of your profile. Karen says your experience. Okay. Jessie Ann, your about section. Ooh, the about section. We'll definitely talk about that. Your job, your current jobs, maybe your headline. Savannah, nice. Marissa, your name and your photo. Okay. Chris, another one like Jessie Ann for the about section. Yeah, Leslie, the summary. So it seems like there's a lot of different answers. Okay, about section and referrals. Danielle will definitely get to that. Awesome. Mason, connections, also an essential part. We'll talk more about that in the next week's workshop, but definitely essential. The most important part of a LinkedIn profile depends on what we're talking about. If we're talking about making an outstanding first impression, the data shows that headshots and your background image are statistically the most important part of your profile because photos have a much higher impression rate than text. And so from a first impression, your headshot and your background photo. But in terms of what's getting your profile searched by recruiters, 3 sections in order: your headline, your about section, and your experience section. Now, here's a quick disclaimer, and here's a mistake I see all the time. Sometimes on your resume, we're taught to confine it to 1 page if you're a current student. The thing about your LinkedIn profile is the more comprehensive your profile is filled out, the higher up your profile appears in recruiter searches. So make sure that we're not making the mistake of less is more. And let's get started with talking about the above the fold section of your profile. It's called above the fold because marketing, here's a little quick fun fact, newspapers, when they used to be delivered, they would be folded on driveways, as of course I'm sure you know. And so marketers, they would design the newspaper to have a really wonderful headline and imagery text above the fold that would engage readers to open the newspaper and read more. How do we make your profiles above the fold engage a recruiter, someone who's interviewing you, to read more? And that's what we're going to talk about with this top section. And we'll start with the visual first impression. The first part is your headshot. Now, if you don't have a headshot, this is the reason why your profile might not be getting as many views. The headshot's the single most important part of a profile because from a data standpoint, profiles with headshots are 21 times more likely to be viewed than profiles without headshots. 2,100% increase. Now, I know you might be thinking, but David, I don't have a good headshot. Or maybe if you're a current underclassman, the last headshot you have was from high school. Well, here's the thing. Now that we have modern day technology, there's no reason not to have a really beautiful headshot of yourself. Luckily, iPhone cameras are so high quality that on a clear day, go out, maybe use portrait mode, go near indirect sunlight, and smile. I took this picture of my dad a few weeks ago. He was already dressed up for something. We went into our front yard and we took a little picture. All of you have the access to do that. Secondly, if you don't have a minimalist, maybe greenery background like my dad did, who I know is just incredibly handsome, but if you don't have that background, go to remove.bg, and it's a website that with one click, you can remove the background of your photo. Now, I get messages all the time from job seekers saying, but David, how do I know if my profile is any good? And I could give you one person's opinion, but why get just my opinion when you can get hundreds of opinions? The website photofeeler.com is a crowdsourced platform that enables users and different internet users to give feedback on people's pictures. Now, you can upload your headshot and people will literally rank you. I'll show you an example of what this looks like. People will rank your profile on 3 dimensions: competence, likability, and degree of influence. So you can see maybe where are you lower on the bars. But also what's really cool about this website is it enables students and people and professionals to give feedback, to say, hey, your hair looks a little messy. Maybe use an open mouth smile, might look more professional. You might not look likable because of whatever reason. So that's PhotoFeeler. I do want to give a quick disclaimer that you can use PhotoFeeler for executive business headshots, or you can use it for social media profiles or even dating pictures. But in those bars, they're going to rate you on attractiveness. And so just make sure that you are going into it for your headshot. Otherwise, you're going to be getting different results. On the other hand, there's another tool called remove.bg, which I spoke about earlier. I tried to go onto Google Images and find like the worst stock photo that I could. And I found this selfie, and notice how through simple cropping, because your headshot should be 75% of the picture should be your face. Notice how through simple cropping and removing the background, we were able to take a pretty unbearable selfie into a pretty passable headshot. Now, of course, we want to have a better headshot, but notice how that would be better than nothing. Now, mistake number 2, and I see this happen all the time, sometimes even with CEOs. You may have a headshot, but it may not look like you do because of your privacy settings. So everyone, go to your profile. Even if you have a headshot, click on your face, and notice when you click on your head on a computer, there's going to be an eye that pops up in the bottom right corner. It says visibility. Click on that and make sure it's labeled to public. If it's not set to public, recruiters and people finding your profile may not think you have a headshot at all. So we all know what we need to do to have a headshot. But if you don't have a background photo, that's precious real estate that you're missing out on. So here are 6 ideas for you all to create really vibrant background images if you don't have anything right now, or you want to take it up a notch. And I'm going to give you 6 options, and each of those options will sort of be one better than the other. So number 6 is probably going to be your best option to making a wonderful first impression. First, all of you are NC State alumni or students, so you have a wonderful, wonderful background to lean on. You can Google a beautiful stock photo of NC State and put that up behind you, like Connor did. Secondly, if you're going into a field like music, like software engineering or consulting, you can find a stock photo that's related to your field. My 3 favorite websites to find stock photos are Pexels, Unsplash, and LinkedInbackground.com. That's my brother. He was a software engineer, so we found a keyboard stock photo for him. 3, if you have a particular city or landmark you're going to go to, maybe that's Raleigh. Praneeth over here knew that he wanted to go to New York to study investment banking, so he put up a picture of the New York skyline. Number 4, let's say you have a side hobby or passion outside of work that you want to flex. Catherine is a strategy consultant, but when we worked on her profile, she said that she loves baking and she brings it into every interview. So why not put pictures of her cupcakes as her background photo? Now, option 5, if you're a part of an organization, for example, I know NC State has a chapter of AMA. If you were a part of American Marketing Association, your organization, whether it's your club on campus or whether it's your work or your current company, your marketing communications team probably has stock photos that you can use for your background image. So reach out to your marketing point people just to see if you can help accentuate their brand while also making yours pop on the profile. And 6th, and my personal favorite, make your own custom branded one. Now, if you can make your own custom branded image, this will so differentiate you since not that many people have profile pictures that further reinforce who they are. Now, if you want to make your own, you can do it easily on Canva, which is really intuitive for people who don't have a lot of design experience. They have a template that you can use for LinkedIn banners, but just know that the dimensions are actually not right. So I gave you the proper ones right there. 1584 by 396 pixels. You can take a stock photo and layer pictures and text on top of it like Randa did to talk about her financial analyst positions, or even on my profile where I talk about the fact that I'm a human energizer bunny and a LinkedIn fanatic. So that's the visuals, your headshot, your background photo. Now we're going to turn the table a little bit and talk a little bit about appearing in recruiter searches. Now, appearing in recruiter searches, I put up this little screenshot because this is the LinkedIn recruiter tool that recruiters are using. Fun fact, recruiters actually have a different back-end visibility of the platform than normal users. And because they have this different back-end visibility, they have different features and ability to find people in an algorithm that's actually different than the main algorithm we use to search for people in the normal LinkedIn search bar. So what I want to do is talk you through the 3 most important sections that make your profile shoot up the rank. So let's say a recruiter says, look, I went to NC State, I know Go Packs, I want to support my alma mater, and I want to find someone who's in the healthcare space. So I'm going to Google, and then there's going to be hundreds of profiles that come up. How does your profile appear above the rest? Through these 3 sections, having an optimized headline, about section, and experience section. Now, I know there are some students or maybe even some professionals who are saying, what if I'm still figuring out my professional path? Well, I want to give 4 quick pieces of practical advice if this is you and you find yourself at a junction. First, if you notice in this slide, the person is sort of sitting at a crossroad. He could go one direction or the other. And if you're just waiting for the lightning bolt of inspiration to come to you, you're probably going to be waiting a really long time. Pick a path to go down, and if that is not the path you want, disqualify it and go down another path. Or if you don't want to take a new job in a leap of faith, schedule informational interviews with alumni or fellow peers and learn about their job that way. We'll talk about how to do that and how to leverage that to get a job in next week's session. Secondly, if you're a current student and people are asking you, what do you want to do with your life? Use this statement. It's okay to embrace ambiguity. While I don't have complete clarity, I know because of my experiences with public speaking, I know I want to be in a role where I'm constantly giving presentations for people. It makes it seem like you have your life together, and it also enables people to give you feedback. 3, the most confident person in the room is sometimes faking it. I know when I was a student and when I often speak with students, they say, well, Johnny has his whole life together. I want to be that decisive. When I was a freshman, I sat next to someone who knew exactly he wanted to go into investment banking. And I said, man, I wish I had that clarity. All 4 years I spent figuring out what I wanted to do. By the time he got his senior year job offer, he ended up saying, nope, this isn't what I want. And so it's okay to be open-minded for a while. And lastly, you're never done. I know there are people on this call who graduated in 2007. It's totally okay to pivot. And hopefully throughout this workshop, you're going to know exactly what you need to do in order to pivot your profile. So the most important part to appearing in recruiter searches, regardless of the section, is keywords. And in order to find keywords for the jobs that you are applying to and that recruiters will be using to find your profile, follow these 3 steps. First, find 5 to 10 job titles or descriptions that resonate with you. Use LinkedIn, Google, Indeed. It doesn't matter the location or if you're actually going to apply, but if you think it's a type of job that you'd be interested in, go to the profile of the job and copy and paste all the text into a separate Word doc. You only need to go under qualifications and responsibilities. There's going to be information like NC State is an equal employment opportunity company, and we don't discriminate against a bunch of things. You don't need to copy and paste that. That's text that appears everywhere. There's also going to be text that says, LinkedIn is the leading software as a service company. You don't need to know about the company either. You're only knowing the skills that recruiters are using to appear in the job. Lastly, create a word bubble. Using the website resumatch.io, it'll auto-generate a word bubble that makes the most frequent skills appear in large, but it'll also tell you which skills are hard skills and soft skills. Blue is soft skills, red is hard skills. So you can integrate both into your profile. Now, how do we do it? Let's start off with our headline. The secret to creating a magic headline has 3 key components. 1, keywords from the job titles that you're going to be applying to. 2, keywords from the industry that you're aiming to go into. And 3, your special something. What makes you you? And this is where you get to be a little bit more human and develop a really strong relationship with whoever's reading your profile. Here's a template for all of you to follow. 4 parts. First, your desired job title. Second, the industry that you want to go into. Third, any miscellaneous keywords that come up that are imperative from the word bubble time and time again in the job titles. And then fourth, your special something. So for me, my special something is that I'm Human Energizer Bunny. You may be thinking, well, David, how did you come across that you were a Human Energizer Bunny? Did you just give yourself that title? And the reality is I didn't. I actually had someone look at me one day and go, you are a Human Energizer Bunny. And it stuck. And so sometimes your brand differentiator or special something might come from those around you. So it might not be the worst idea to ask those around you for some ideas. Maybe it's a side hobby. Maybe it's a hustle. In terms of your desired job title, some companies might do data analysis associate. Some people might have data analyst coordinator. You want to take sort of the biggest keywords and put them up front. Secondly, the industry that you're looking to go into. And then third, the miscellaneous keywords. Here's what that might look like. IT technician, quantitative data analysis and applied statistics, hiking enthusiast. What this headline does is it takes a lot of different keywords into consideration. IT, quantitative, data analysis, statistics. In the second one, and notice that in both of these headlines, we use interesting dividers. So I use vertical lines in mine. You can use double slashes. You can use symbols like diamonds, circles, bullets. This one's academic advisor, higher education, helping college students thrive, 3 times marathon runner. Now, you might be thinking when you're reading all this, David, that is a really, really, really long headline. I just want to keep it simple with my job title and my company. That's it. Or maybe I want to say seeking marketing internship or looking for a career pivot. Here's the reality of why it's important to not just have minimalism right here. When recruiters are searching for profiles, this is what's going to appear. They're going to have a lot of different titles. Let's say a recruiter was looking to hire an academic advisor. They might look at all of these different profiles, but the profile that they're going to resonate with and that they're going to want to click on to read more because it captured their attention above the fold was Dominica's. What it'll also do is help you appear higher in the searches when you're taking advantage of more characters in your headline. So Dominica's would probably be in John Doe's spot. Now, quick headline tips, and then I think we have a question or two, so I'm going to go back to that in a second. 3 quick headline tips. 1, in June of 2020, LinkedIn expanded the limit of the number of characters you can use in your headline. Most people don't know that. And so most people don't take advantage of it. But because you're here, you know exactly what you need to do to tap into LinkedIn's magic. 2, again, if you don't have a specific job title in mind, get that clarity faster because the more decisive you are, the easier it's going to be to land not just any job, but the right job for you. A targeted job search will always win. 3, avoid seeking or aspiring. If you are seeking or looking for a potential job or a career pivot, that is amazing. And what psychology shows from supply and demand is that recruiters are less likely actually to go with a profile just because someone's seeking a new job, but more so because of the skills and strengths and qualities that they do have and the value they'll add to the role. Now 3, this is a mistake for current students only. If you are a student and you're still figuring out what you want, it's important to write more than student at NC State. at least include your major, but also remember that any keywords, go-getter, team player, diligent, hard worker, those actually don't add anything to your profile. Use the word bubble that we created on resimatch.io, and that is what's going to drive the insights for your profile. 3 quick final ways to maximize above the fold, and then we'll get to Q&A. I see we have a few, which is awesome. 1, location. You might notice that you have a location there, and you might have Raleigh, North Carolina. Instead, regardless of whether you're still in Raleigh or whether you're across the country in New York and Seattle even, pick the largest metropolitan area near you. So a recruiter in a neighboring city, if she doesn't have your exact city located, then that you're still popping up. So Raleigh, Durham, Chapel Hill area. It's going to be another option when you type in your zip code. Secondly, aim for 500 plus connections. We'll talk about how to do this next week, but until you get to 500 plus, aim for quantity. Again, you can connect with everyone, your friends, family, fellow students, alumni, and just remember to add a note. We'll talk about what to put in that note next week, but aim for 500 plus. 3, and we'll talk about why that's important next week too. 3, your contact info. Make sure you have your email and your phone number available. If you're going into a creative field, whether it's music production, whether it's graphic design, include a portfolio link. The way to do that is by clicking the pencil icon, going down to the bottom, and clicking contact info. Zooey Mama, we have a few questions. So I'm going to pause here for a second, and I'm going to open up the Q&A really quickly. What if you're looking to change or pivot your career and don't know what job title to look for to feature in your headline? Amazing, Samantha. And this is a really, really good question. For all my career changers out there, 2 quick tips for you. 1, for location. If you're looking to pivot, change the location of where you want recruiters to find you. And so if you are in Raleigh right now, but maybe you're trying to move out to Florida, change it to greater Miami area. In terms of your job titles and in terms of what you're going to use to infuse into your headline, it's a little bit challenging, but here's what I'm going to challenge you to do. Take the circle of your current job title, make a circle of the job titles that you're going to be applying to, and try and find the overlap. What is the through line between these jobs and the jobs I'm going for? So I'll give you an example. I was working with a software engineer a few weeks ago, and I was revising his profile, and he was really looking to get into consulting. And what we learned is that out of the consulting roles that he applied to, some of the biggest job titles or some of the biggest keywords that popped up were client relations, were presenting skills, public speaking, data, quantitative analysis. And it wasn't a lot of machine learning or Java. So what he was able to say is he was able to create a headline that infused the new keywords without being completely disingenuous to his current jobs. Quantitative focused professional with strong client relations abilities. And so it wasn't completely saying, okay, well, you're not saying software engineer, but what it was focused on the future while also talking about his value. So try and find the overlap between your current job and the roles you're going to be applying to, and then use those keywords to incorporate into your headline. Another thing, let's say you want to jump ship completely. You're in higher education right now, and let's say you want to go into healthcare. One quick thing that you could do is add at the end of your profile, healthcare enthusiast. Now, one way or another, even if you're not in the industry, you still have the right keywords. Healthcare advocate, healthcare enthusiast, healthcare champion. Hopefully those tips help you out, Samantha, but keep these questions coming. I see we have a few Q&A questions, and I don't think I'm able to answer those, Connor. If you have access to those, do you mind reading them out?
Absolutely. Yeah, I was just going to say, so our first question, a couple questions, but the first is just that you mentioned putting your desired job title in the headline. Does that imply that you already have that job?
Good question. Let's say you're going for a job that is a social media coordinator role. If that's the role that you're going for, then I recommend incorporating it without necessarily feeling disingenuous, because you don't want to put this in your profile, and I don't want anyone to leave here saying, I'm saying I'm a social media coordinator, but I'm not. Put in social media marketing as your first. It's the keywords of your biggest strengths, and it doesn't talk about a specific job title, let's say. So social media marketing or social media marketer, or leveraging brands, helping brands storytell on social media using data. Taking the keywords without actually putting in a formal job title might help tell your story a little bit more authentically. Hopefully that helps.
Yeah, I think that's great. Thanks, David. And another question was just how or would you include any kind of student design or senior design projects on your profile, and how would you maybe go about best doing that?
Absolutely. So there are two ways that you can include your senior design project depending on where you want it to appear. If you're maybe limited on the amount of actual experience you've had from internships or clubs or organizations, it might actually be better to build into your experience section, which we'll talk about in a bit. If you just want to include it as a really strong work sample, then there's actually an interesting place to put it in your featured media section. So you can include it right underneath your about section. You can upload it there, and that will probably be a really strong way to grab someone's attention. Now, quick note about featured media. If you are going to upload it there, you can customize what is in the title and what is the preview text for your specific media. Make sure that you play around and edit the title and the description text so that it's clear and it's not just a default. I see people all the time who upload a photo of a time that they were on a team project or got an award, and then the file name just appears and it says IMG_6984. And like, that's not really helpful. Instead, say award-winning graphic design pitch competition. And then in your text, for my senior design class, I worked directly with a client to help augment their brand. And these were the results. Click to learn more. That's what you want to put in the body text. That's where you would put your work sample if you already have a lot of experience that you are comfortable with. Hopefully that helps.
Awesome. Thanks, David. I think that's all the questions we have right now. But yeah, just a friendly reminder to keep throwing if you have questions in the Q&A feature, and we'll get them answered. So
absolutely. Thanks, Connor. So now let's go into our middle chunk. I know we just had a question there about the experience section, so we'll talk about that. And it's sandwiched between your about section, your summary, which kudos to a lot of people who threw out that is really important. And then we'll also talk about your education section. Are you just saying you go to NC State, or are you really, really talking about it and maximizing your potential for that section? Now let's start with the about section. Whenever I work with a new client and whenever we get to this section, and I ask, how do you feel about your about section? Or if they don't have anything, how do you feel about writing one? This is what I get. I get people who are pulling their hairs out. I get people who don't really know where to start. And so my goal from the end of this, maybe 3 minutes, if nothing else, you feel like this about the about section. Hands up, I'm so excited. I know exactly what I need to do to finish this section. So here's how we're going to do it. I'm going to give you 8 tips to write your about section with a disclaimer that there's no right way to write an about section, but I am going to give you a 5-part template that is going to take a lot of the heavy lifting off of each person on this call. So first, 8 tips to writing your about section. First, your first sentence impactful and succinct. Just like above the fold with a newspaper and your entire profile, if your about section doesn't engage them in the first opening sentence, what's going to stop them from pressing see more, or metaphorically opening the newspaper of your about section? Second, 3 to 5 paragraphs is what we've found to be the most effective, and use a lot of white space. I know whenever I get an email that has a lot of block text, I just it hurts my brain. And so make people's lives easier by putting clear spacing between the paragraphs. 4, lose the jargon. You want to make it accessible to anyone who's reading your profile while also making sure you're incorporating keywords, number 7. And I'll talk about how to do that in a second. Write how you speak. Unless you're a CEO or you can afford to have someone managing your LinkedIn presence full time, probably makes more sense to say I, me, my, rather than David Rosenstein, he. You can be a little bit more approachable in your LinkedIn summary than you can in other places. But a really good happy medium, if you're uncomfortable saying, I am a graphic designer, you can say graphic designer with 4 years of experience. You can avoid the pronouns altogether. Lastly, proofreading. If you have Grammarly or if you have a peer who you want to read it over, that'll help you out. And here's an example of an about section that I wrote with a client. I'll actually pull it up so you can read it nice and large. This was for a consultant, and notice how she sort of has it broken down. There's a lot of white space. It incorporates keywords, and it really tells a clear story that it's pretty skimmable. If you're only reading the first line of every paragraph, you sort of get the gist of what the rest of the paragraph is going to talk about. Now, how do we write an about section like this? Or how do we write an about section like this one? If you're going into policy, maybe take a screenshot of this one because it might resonate more so with you. But again, this whole profile is going to be recorded, and also you're going to get the slide deck afterwards. So here is my 5-part about section template that has helped students, alumni, and seasoned professionals time and time again find clarity. First, your hook. Grab them with less than 233 characters so that it doesn't get cut off. Explain in a quick sentence who you are, your professional interests, and your most relevant experiences. Second, a professional role summary. Talk about your current role or the most recent professional experience you've had. For a career changer, focus on talking about your current job through the lens of how does it make sense and qualify you for the jobs you're applying to. 3, previous roles. Highlight any current roles that you've had or your biggest wins. If you're a current student or upperclassman, highlight the organizations maybe you've been a part of. And you can dedicate 1 paragraph to each experience, or you can use 1 paragraph to briefly give an overview if that's easier. 4 is my personal favorite. It's called the when now. When I'm not at work. This is where you get to humanize your profile and talk and give opportunities for when interviewers are looking at your profile, get them to build a connection with you. When I'm not at work, you can find me baking, reading, running. 5, specialties or contact info. This is where we get to incorporate all of the keywords that you find from the blue and the red word bubble that we created, but they can't fit in other parts of your profile. So we dump them. We write specialties, throw them in there. Here's how this might look. Again, up on top, you have an opening hook. I am a resident junior fellow at the Alliance for Securing Democracy and recent graduate of this school. Seasoned professional with 16 years of healthcare consulting experience. Strategy-focused consultant with quantitative skills and demonstrated data expertise. Secondly, your professional role. Third, your leadership, any campus involvement, or any previous roles that are worth mentioning. 4, when I'm not at work. And then 5, specialties or a keyword dump. Notice how what this person did in this profile is when they wrote at the bottom looking to explore, it included all the different types of roles they were open to. The journalism, corporate social responsibility, government politics. All that does is it makes sure your profile is appearing when recruiters are doing the right searches. And at the bottom included all of the keywords that appeared in the job titles. Mistake number 4, attaching your resume. The reason why you should not attach your resume is for a few reasons. First, you should be customizing your resume for the roles you're applying to. And having a catch-all resume, while it might be fine, a recruiter might look at your profile, immediately go to your resume, and disqualify you for a job that you may be very qualified for if you just tailored the right resume and sent it to them. Also, you're putting all this work into your LinkedIn profile. Why give them the opportunity to cop out and look at your resume and say, no, they're not good enough? Put the work in your LinkedIn profile and then make them stare at it and read it. You're going to wow them. And lastly, if someone is interested in hiring you and they want to read your resume, make them ask. Make them ask, hi there, I have this role. I would love to see your resume. And that way you know who's looking at your profile and you can strategically network like we're going to talk about next week. Okay, so pop quiz, because we're going to talk about the experience section. The experience section is the meat of your LinkedIn profile. And I get this question all the time. How do you write an experience section? Well, I'm going to flip it and ask, is there a wrong way to write your experience section? And I'm going to give you 4 different examples. And you tell me in the chat box if you think any one of these ways is wrong or ineffective. 1, using bullets, copy and pastes from your resume. 2, paragraphs, telling stories, saying, look, in this role, I did this. These were my responsibilities. These were some of my biggest wins. 3, a hybrid of both. A paragraph talking about who the company is, what your job is. Bullets talking about your wins or metrics. And 4, a blank experience section. No logos, no text, no descriptions at all. Okay. Shot in the dark. Do we think that any one of these sections is ineffective? 1, 2, 3, or 4? Yeah, exactly. I see. Yeah. Thank you, Marissa. Thank you, Olivia. Exactly. Number 4. Having an ineffective and not built out section is probably the least way you could do it. And 1, 2, and 3 probably go in order from least effective to most effective. And here's why. In your experience section, there are 3 key parts to making your profiles appear higher. 1, the title. Most people will write apprentice, assistant, director. But that misses out your profile on a whole lot of opportunity to appear in recruiter searches. So instead of writing intern, include data analysis intern, vertical line, strategy and policy. Incorporate the keywords that are from the bubble that we found earlier on. The more and more times the keywords appear in your profile, the higher up your profile appears for recruiter searches. Secondly, the description. Not having a description is just a waste of space. If you're in a role and if you've been in a role for a while, you might as well talk about what you're doing, why you're doing it, and what your biggest wins are. I like to use this as sort of my public work journal. If you go onto my profile and you look at my work experience under collegeadvisor.com, you'll see that I'm keeping track of my biggest wins to date, and I'm live updating them on LinkedIn. Now, I'm not notifying my entire network every time I change something. Make sure you uncheck that box when you upload an experience. But what I am doing is I'm keeping track. So when people say, or maybe in 5-6 months, if I want to switch jobs and I want someone to look at my jobs, I want them to be able to see very clearly, oh, these are the wins that he had over the role. I don't want to be able to look back 5 months later and go, I don't remember like how much of a win this project was, how much revenue I generated, how much time I saved. If you're in a current role, use LinkedIn in the description section to bullet out some of the biggest wins. And lastly, the logo. Now, if you're working for a company, a startup, or maybe you were just a lifeguard at a local community center, if your company doesn't have an established company page, you have two options. One, lean on sort of a parent company. So let's say, for example, you work for a specific department at NC State that doesn't have a professional LinkedIn presence. Well, NC State has a LinkedIn profile, so just list them as your employer and clarify in your title what subsidiary you're working for. Title, comma, NC State Alumni Center. If you're working for an organization on campus that doesn't have a LinkedIn profile, ask the people who run it to make the profile page for you, or just list NC State, comma, the organization name. Now, if you do, or if you're running a company, if you're in a director role, make the profile page yourself. No harm in doing that. Make sure that you have a logo up here just to make sure your profile looks cleaner and more professional. And then lastly, your education section. Your GPA included if it was higher than a 3.5. Make sure you have the right degree listed. I see a lot of people who say they got Bachelor's of Arts when they got Bachelor's of Sciences, little things for compliancy. If you have an acronym, make sure you spell out, write out the entire college and also maybe include it there. For example, I threw out American Marketing Association because I know that's a big club on campus. American Marketing Association, parentheses, AMA. That way, if a recruiter is searching for either of them, your profile is appearing for both options. If NC State has a different college that you're specifically affiliated with, and if that college has its own page, make sure you list that and the university at large so recruiters can find you regardless of which way they're going. And then lastly, include honors, experiences, campus leadership roles. You can do that under the activities and society section, or you can do it underneath in your bullets. I gave you a screenshot of my profile if you want, but I'll also include a screenshot of someone from NC State who has a really, really robust section that you can tell is filled out. They really took advantage of the education section, which is just going to make their profile that much pop that much more and appear higher for recruiter searches. Now, there's no way to do bullets in LinkedIn experience sections. So you have to go into Google, type in bullet symbol and then copy it and then paste it and manually do like a bullet symbol every time you want to do it. Or you can do a check, or you can do it open circle, whatever you want. Mistake number 5, writing your class year. Do not write your class year. If you're a senior, junior, just don't do it. Again, alumni, you don't have to listen, but if you have graduated, go back to your profile, do Command F, and make sure you don't have the word junior, senior, graduating anywhere on your profile. I say that because I know a CEO who still says he's a junior at University of Michigan. I don't want to out him, but I checked this morning and it's still there. Questions? Any questions about the About section, experience, or education?
Yeah, so it looks like we've had a few roll in. So the first is just, do recruiters really care about special sauce, quote unquote, if it's not related to work?
Good question. In terms of what recruiters care about, it may not necessarily be related to the job. What it is going to do is it may potentially help you, one, appear more human. And so it may make you more likable. And then 2, if you have any potential opportunity to bond with your interviewer, according to psychology, it's actually going to make you more effective. And the halo effect is a psychology term where someone's going to see, hey, because you're more similar to me, you're a runner, I'm a runner, I'm actually going to view you more favorably across a bunch of different dimensions, which obviously can create some legal complications. And you don't want to be too much into what your personal life is. But any chance you have to open up about your hobby or what makes you you, it can help if you find someone who matches it.
Awesome. Yeah, I think that's super helpful. Another question we have from Diego just is around this notion of seasoned professionals. And does years of experience, can that hurt? Could it hurt? Is, ageism, we know is a real thing. So just how would you, encourage kind of navigating that on your profile?
Absolutely. So for seasoned professionals, what I would say first and foremost, if you have let's say 15, 20, or maybe even 25 years of experience. Sometimes it may help specifically to talk only about maybe 10 plus years of experience of the last and most recent experience that you've had. In your about section, maybe only focus on things that you've been focused on in the past 3 to 4 years, and focus on what are the experiences that are probably most aligned with roles that you may be applying to. So for example, during COVID or pre-COVID, it was probably very popular for people to talk about, especially sales professionals I worked with. It was very popular for them to talk about their trade show experiences. Those are now entirely virtual. And so making sure leveraging saying, hey, my software proficiency is Zoom, Canva, all of the other platforms that are absolutely essential for the job, focus more so on those and focus on the most recent experiences that you've had, because it's definitely important.
Awesome. Well, thank you, David. And I think one of the resources I want to mention is just with the NC State Alumni Association, we've actually just rolled out what we're calling career connections. So I just went ahead and put the URL in the chat. And so for those, just because I know we have kind of a wide variety of ages and experience on the call, we actually, our Alumni Career Connections kind of corner is a web interface that provides resources related to career development for folks, whether you're a young professional, mid-career, experienced, maybe career changers, or you're returning to the workforce, maybe after a maternity leave. So anyway, we have kind of some different resources based on those segmented audiences. So we just encourage y'all to take advantage of that as well, and kind of check out and explore all that it has to offer. So shameless plug, sorry, David, but just wanted to share that resource as well.
Thanks, Connor. And Kara asked a question about tailoring your LinkedIn profile after taking a career break. If you have been taking a break, upload on your profile what you've been doing during that time. If you have been taking any certifications, if you've been taking any courses, doing any side projects, anything possible to keep your learning sharp, fill that gap on your profile. And what you can do is you can even launch and say, you can create your own LinkedIn company page just with your name. You can go to a website like Fiverr and have someone design you a really simple logo just with your name. And then you have something visual and professional looking on your profile to say, hey, even if it's a stay-at-home mom, you can say during these 5 months, these are the 4 things that I was working on, just to show that you have been staying active. Any way that you can put that on your profile is definitely key, because your all-star profile rating, which we'll get to at the end, is dependent on you having a current position. So always make sure you have something current, even if that's just working on things between jobs.
And maybe the last question right now, because I know we got some other good stuff we still got to get to, is just how do you decide what is a personal win to update in your experience section?
Good question. If it's a quantifiable metric, the 2 big questions that I did is how did it help the company? Quantifiable metrics are always a personal win in terms of how you help the company, and how for a recruiter, how maybe you could add value to another company. Have you saved the company money? Have you generated money? Have you saved time? Have you led a team? Have you been along a company that's grown? Was during COVID, were you able to maintain or keep profitability? Were you able to sort of, amongst a whole slew of layoffs, were you able to sort of come out on top and really reinvent the workforce? A personal win is something that's really going to add value to the company, and in a recruiter's lens, looking at what is going to be most valuable in the future jobs you're going to be applying to. We could have a whole hour-long workshop where we talk about what are those resume bullets and how to specifically tailor those. So that is an excellent, excellent question. And with that in mind, I know we're going to read through the final third in about 5 minutes, and we have to talk about the final bottom section of your profile, because what we don't want is a soggy bottom, as I'm a Great British Bake Off fan. So we want to make sure we don't have a wonderful profile with the bottom section not taken care of. So don't worry, this is going to be quick. 3 quick parts of your bottom section to talk about. Volunteering, follow the same rules as work experience. If you don't have a volunteering section, go out and volunteer if you have time and the resources. As my partner Sam always likes to say, go out and just do something. And I think she's spot on. 2, once you gain more work experience, if you're a current student or maybe you're a young alumni, you can move your student leadership experience to volunteering. Second, skills and endorsements. This is one of the most important sections from a profile visibility standpoint. More endorsements on your skills lead you to appear higher in searches. I know you may have people who say you're good at project management, and they may have never seen you do it, but the more people endorse you for the skills that recruiters are going to be searching for, the higher up you appear. Now, if you do have skills that don't have at least one endorsement, then it might as well not be there. And so make sure all of your skills have at least one endorsement. The way to get endorsements is by giving endorsements. Don't give endorsements and then say, hi, I endorsed you. Will you endorse me back? I have people who do that all the time. It feels very pushy and self-induced, but go out, give endorsements, and you will get them in spades in return. Now, note that people will prioritize and probably give you more endorsements for the top 3 that you have. So prioritize the top 3 that you have that are most relevant to the jobs you're going to be applying to from that word bubble. If you need to, shuffle them around to make sure that people are giving you endorsements for the right ones. And lastly, recommendations. This is social proof. When people are about to interview you, they're going to go to your recommendation section and see what has it been like to work with you. And you don't want to get 6 recommendations all at the same time because the dates appear and the timestamps. So what you want to do is space them out and put calendar invites to say, I'm going to reach out to these 2 people this month. 3 months later, I'm going to reach out to these 2 people. 3 months later, I'm going to reach out to these 2 previous coworkers, managers, fellow professors. Now, if you are part of a team or a group, I like to say something that's called create a reciprocation circle. Some LinkedIn experts will say, oh, give an endorsement, and then if you want someone to give you one, give one to them. I don't recommend that because when someone clicks on given versus received, they'll just see the same face twice and they'll know what you did. So instead, do this. Let's say I'm in a group with Connor and Jesseline. Let's say we all worked on a team project together. I'm going to say, hey, Connor, I'm going to write you a LinkedIn recommendation. Connor, you write one for Jesseline, and Jesseline, you write one for me. And that way, you all are getting and giving one without having it be the same person in return. So if that's something you want to do with people on your team, go out and do that. Now, if you do want to request recommendations, here's a really simple template that I'm giving you, which you can all use. Give them an easy out. Hey, if it's too much time or if you don't feel comfortable, no worries at all. But since you have been working with me for so long, I would be really honored if you had this. Now, after this workshop, you're going to be like, oh my gosh, I have so many tools. How do I know if my profile is any good or getting better? Keep yourself accountable with these 2 tools. One, your all-star rating. It's right underneath your about section. It's going to tell you if your profile is complete or if you're missing any key sections. But let's say your profile is complete. You've reached all-star status and you want to know, well, am I doing good enough? Is my profile effectively selling myself? And LinkedIn has a tool called the Social Selling Index, which you can access on ter.ps/LinkedIn-SSI. And it measures how effectively you're selling yourself on LinkedIn across 4 different dimensions. It'll also tell you specifically how to improve each of those dimensions. If let's say you have a really strong professional brand from this workshop, but let's say you have been not finding the right people. And of course, next week's workshop, we're going to talk about how to find the right people. And we'll talk about how to do that in depth. But that'll help you set smart goals for yourself to say, I want to improve this bar by 4 points over the next few months. And you can ask me, how do I know if it's any good, if my SSI compares to my peers? Go into the top right and you can see how you compare to other people that you're connected to. Woo-wee! We spent a lot on the top third of the LinkedIn profile. Next week, we're going to talk about the top right circle. We could have spent a whole hour talking about either of these circles, but hopefully you've all enjoyed this. We can take probably one more question. I'll see you all next week, and I can't wait to take this one last question. You've all been an amazing group.
Awesome. Yeah. So, David, one of the questions is just what should you put in your profile if you're looking for part-time positions, maybe versus full-time?
Good question. There's an open to work feature that you can actually indicate what types of jobs you're looking for. So click on your open to work. indicate that you're looking for part-time roles and put in what you can put in up to 5, what those job titles are.
Awesome. Thank you. And another question, maybe just one more, hopefully if we have time for it, is just, if you were involved in something as a student and maybe it's, an organization that people haven't heard of, or it's an organization that people just don't maybe get, but like was a large organization, got lots of funding, how would you fit that into your profile and kind of make it sellable, if you will?
Absolutely. That sounds like it belongs right in your experience section. If it's something that is sizable, now here's the thing, you're going to have to provide some context. You're going to have to, one, make sure that your LinkedIn profile page, as long as it has a logo set up, make sure that you have that. If the logo necessarily isn't the most professional, if you're not comfortable with that, list the parent organization. So let's say NC State, and clarify what you are in charge of. And then in the first line of your description, just like if you go on my profile, you can read how when I was president of University of Maryland's American Marketing Association chapter, you can see there how I say, look, there's a lot of clubs. The AMA is the largest marketing club, and it's the only marketing club for students at Maryland. You could say, if there were 300 people, Humans versus Zombies is a 300-person organization that got $64,000 in funding annually. It's one of the largest student organizations at NC State. Make sure to clarify and contextualize before then doing a paragraph about your job. My role as the president was to really coordinate and lead a 16-person executive board to manage hundreds of logistics, including this huge event, which coordinated and encapsulated 16,000 people. We gained 4,000 followers on Instagram. Here are some of my biggest wins. 1, 2, 3. You can follow the exact same template I have on my profile under AMA, which was a pretty large organization that I ran. And so you can copy and paste that for you. It's a little template.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, David. I think everyone's kind of been sharing their thoughts in the chat, but I think this was super insightful. And I definitely think it gives us all a lot to be thinking about and what we can do, right, to improve. So to David